First off, I just really want to welcome all of you, and I'm very happy to see some old friends and to meet some new friends. I want to just tell you briefly what Coaching from Essence is about for those of you that might be new to this. Maybe you just saw something on LinkedIn and you don't really know what this is about, but you were curious enough to attend. Um, I am the founder of Coaching from Essence. I'm an executive coach. I've been doing coaching for over 30 years, 35 years or so now. And most of my work until the past 6 or 7 years ago was much more skills-based coaching. And I went through sort of a crisis of faith around that, a dark night of the soul, where I realized I wasn't satisfied doing that kind of work. I wanted to do deeper personal work and transformative coaching. And so I had to find my way of being a coach, and I created a way of approaching coaching, which became Coaching from Essence. And in a nutshell, Coaching from Essence is a loose collection of ideas and models and frameworks, some that I created, some that I adapted, but it's really a language for creating. And it can be helpful regardless of what kind of coach you are, whether you're a life coach or an executive coach. We have wellness coaches, creativity coaches, all kinds of coaches in the Coaching from Essence community. And Coaching from Essence is it's a curriculum, if you will, but more importantly, it's a community of coaches. There are over 450 coaches now in the Coaching from Essence community. And I'm just going to put the link in the chat here. The community is completely free. In fact, the entire Coaching from Essence program, the entire curriculum is completely free. The first cohort happened in January of 2020, and then COVID happened, so it moved online. There were 3 more cohorts, and each of those cohorts was recorded on Zoom, and I've made the entire program completely free. I want you to know I did that. I did it for a couple of reasons. One is that one of the core values of Coaching from Essence is generosity. We serve in the spirit of generosity with our clients. I created my practice by practicing generosity. And I wanted to create a community of coaches that was based on generosity, not spamming each other and trying to sell stuff and everything, but really a spirit of generosity where we are colleagues who are here to serve each other. The only thing that I charge for now is if you want to work with me live in person. But the entire course is completely free. You can go through it 3 times. In fact, most of the programs that I charge for, I then make free and upload to the community. So you can watch probably by now hundreds of hours of programs, client creation sprints, coaching demos, and it's all completely free. So if you're interested in coaching, I really encourage you to join the community. And if you haven't already bought the book, please buy the book. The book is the clearest distillation of the curriculum, the ideas and frameworks and so forth that form the basis of the coaching. And then there is a Master Coach program in August. If you're interested in working with me personally, that's a small group program. It's limited to 12 people. It meets every week in August, and I'd love to have you join me there. So that's the whole pitch. Coaching from Essence is, if you know the 80-20 rule, 20% of what you do gets 80% of the results that you get. Coaching from Essence is my 20%. It's the 20% of what I do as a coach that gets 80% of the results that I get. And the other 80% is my bone knowledge, my life experience, and so forth. So each one of you has your life experience, your professional experience, your bone knowledge, and that serves you as a coach. That is valuable to somebody. So even if you think you're just starting out as a coach, you already have a lot that is valuable to offer. And then you learn your skills and hone your skills anywhere you can. Learn from anything and everything. Okay. So what I want to do today is this is something I do sometimes in the coaching programs, is I'm going to coach out loud. And what I mean by that is when you're in a coaching session, every time the client stops speaking, you're at a fork in the road. you have multiple choices of how you can respond to that client. There is no one right way to coach. And no coach is perfect. Nobody says the exact perfect thing every time you respond to a client. Coaching, for those of you that know this language from Coaching from Essence, good coaching is a quest. We don't know exactly. There is no path. There is no one right way to do it. It's a quest. We conduct experiments. We try different things with the client. We see what results that we get and we adjust. And the aim is to create a session that's better than either one of us can imagine when we start. So the way I think of an ideal coaching session is everybody gets something they didn't know they needed and learns something they didn't know they knew. And so that's what we're trying to do. So I'm going to do some demonstrations today. A couple of disclaimers before we start. The first thing is that most of my coaching sessions are 2 hours long. So what you're going to see really are snippets, little pieces of what might, the kinds of things that might happen in a longer conversation. Most of my clients are either an hour every week or 2 hours twice a month. So you're just going to see some little snippets. Because of that, you may look at the content of what you see and think, well, this seems a little superficial. We're not going very deep here. And that's because when you just start a conversation with someone, it's very easy to get a little bit caught up in what I call the do loop, which comes from triple loop learning, which you can read about in the book or Google. But triple loop learning is, the first level is doing. A client comes to you and they want to know what to do. Our role as coaches is in the conversation to lead them deeper. So not just what to do, but how they're thinking about what they're doing. And then even deeper to who are they being? How are they showing up for what they're doing? What's their intention? What's their attitude, in relationship to whatever it is, their problem they're trying to solve or what they're trying to create. So I want to let you know that, because you may look at this and we may do a lot of do loop coaching here because that's the first thing that appears. But I'm going to share with you how I think about it and where I might lead the client if it were a longer conversation. Okay. So before I get started, any questions, comments, or reactions to anything that I've said so far? All good? Okay. Danae, you had volunteered to coach. Are you comfortable going first?
Sure. Yeah.
Great. So Danae, what would be the most valuable thing that we could talk about for a few minutes today?
Well, I am at a kind of a juncture in my career. I've been coaching and doing leadership training and development for about 7 years. I've always had some of my own business, my independent clients, where currently I have one that I work with a team of managers and directors and their supervisors, actually. And then I usually supplement my portfolio of revenue generating activities with contract work. I've contracted with a couple different companies, and that is usually around leadership development or culture transformation, that sort of thing. And I really enjoy that because I like working with a team. I like working with other individuals on a regular basis, and I like getting different experiences. So the company that I was contracting with for the last 3.5 years has refocused back to their core business because of some financial hardship in the last couple of years. So I'm no longer doing work with them. I've been enjoying some more white space in my calendar, and your book has really re-engaged my interest in coaching and deepening my practice and really defining the kind of clients that I want to work with. Most of my clients have been the boss hires me and I come in and I work with a group individually and as a group. And so I have had some really great experiences in coaching that way, but there are also people that they didn't necessarily opt in.
Right.
Most of them are very appreciative to have a coach, but it's not somebody who sought me out. And I really would like to work with some clients who are a little further along, maybe in their development journey and looking to go deeper, to do something deeper. I have a hesitancy though, or for some reason, there's always been this kind of resistance in me to double down on my own business. Again, I really like the teamwork, so I know that's part of it, but there's something bigger, the idea of, I finally did put up a website last year after intending to for 7 years. But I kept it very general and generic, mostly about me and the kind of work I do, but not going, I haven't started blogging or anything. I share on LinkedIn every once in a while, but it's not usually in an effort to share anything specific. It's just something that I'm moved to share. There is just, and I have colleagues who one woman that I work with, she's wonderful. And she's so complimentary of me and my experience. And she's, built out her website and she's built a course and she holds these groups. And I love that. And for some reason, I think, why can't I do that? I only do it if I'm sanctioned to do it. If I'm given a project by a client to do, then I build and I create and I facilitate and I love it. But there's something in me that's like, why would you do that just on your own? Like, who are you or what are, so I guess that's a long-winded way to set the foundation.
So thank you for that. Sit tight for a minute. I'm going to think out loud and just sort of share what I'm thinking about as you were talking. Okay. The first thing is, sometimes a client will go on pretty long. She did a little bit of a download. Some coaches don't like that or see a lot of value in that, but I find it incredibly valuable to let the person talk. In fact, Danae didn't really talk that long compared to most clients. Most clients will, give you a long a monologue about their situation. I find that incredibly valuable because I'm listening for some very specific things. One of the things that I'm listening for is essence. Like, what am I learning about what's important to her? What are her values and things like that? And so I heard some things about what she really likes about her work, our teamwork, and, so there's some values in there that I'm listening for. The other thing is I'm listening for what I call levels of creation, is sort of my version of logical levels or neurological levels. If you're interested, you can Google that. But I'm listening for essence. I'm listening for vision. In other words, what is her purpose, or what is she thinking about what she really wants to create? What's her identity? How does she see herself? What are her beliefs? Identity is your beliefs about yourself. What are her values? What are her capabilities, knowledge, skills, and abilities? What behaviors or actions is she taking or not taking? And then the environment, people, places, things, i.e. resources and time. So I'm listening for all those things, because if I listen for that, I might be able to see what's lacking or where she's stuck and what level might have the most impact if I were to respond and work on that level. The other thing is I'm always listening for emotion. So what seems to have the most juice? Now, in what Danae gave me, there's a lot of facts. And again, I could go to the do loop, and it seems like part of the do loop is, maybe how might she create some clients where she can do teamwork? And one of the things she said is that she hasn't really actively created clients. How could she create her ideal clients? That would be more of a do loop approach. But where I heard the most sort of energy and frustration and stuckness was there's something that keeps her from really just creating herself and being more intrinsically motivated. It seems like she's very extrinsically motivated. She can create and she loves it when somebody else tells her what to do, but there's some resistance to really discovering what it is that she really cares about as a coach, and then creating from her essence, really creating from herself, and then creating a practice that reflects that and is resonant with that. So I'm thinking about all these things as I'm listening to her, and I don't know what's right. I don't know what's the best choice, but usually my intuition is always to go where I feel like there's the most juice. And here I think the most juice is to look at the resistance. But I want you to understand that in a longer 2-hour conversation, I might just be more curious about I might have her just tell me more about how does she create clients? What does it feel like? What does she like? What doesn't she like? There's a lot more that I would unpack in a longer conversation, but because I'm doing laser coaching, I'm just going to laser right in. So Danae, one of the things I heard is that it seems to be a lot of resistance to just creating from yourself versus responding to a client or an opportunity that comes to you. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I think some of it is practical, like build stuff that you're getting paid to build, and then reiterate with that as you can. So there's a little bit of a belief around not spending time doing something that I'm not getting paid to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably rooted in just, having grown up single mom, 2 kids, really, not a lot of money. And so everything, every time, every minute counts, every dollar counts, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the bigger part of it is just the whole, like, why should anybody pay for what I think? I'm really good at collecting other people's ideas and bringing them together in different ways that make sense for me. I take in a lot of content. I'm, deeply curious about everything. And I methodically, the way I read your book is the way I read many books, and I take notes and I organize, and so I'm good about taking in content and organizing it in a way that really makes sense to me, and then trying to help, turn that around and help it make sense to somebody else too. But I have a really good friend and mentor. She's actually like family to me, that she keeps telling me, Danae, you're here to create. You're on this, you're in this universe to create something. And, and she keeps encouraging me, this is the time. But I think it's more of the like, well, what do I know? Who am I?
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot of permission slips. I did an executive MBA program. I have my coaching certification, all the things, but none of it seems to be like enough to say, okay, I'm an authority on this topic, and let me share with you what I know.
Okay, sit tight for a second. So what did you notice about what she just told us? So again, if we're listening for essence and values and beliefs, what did you just hear? There's something about there's first of all, there's a belief about the value of what she knows. This is what we call so in coaching from essence, one of the things we're also listening for are what we call thresholds. And thresholds are places where we get stuck in creating. So we're moving from what we know to what we want. And what are the things that keep us stuck? There are a number of different thresholds, but the one that stands out here is what I call the knowledge threshold. And the knowledge threshold can show up in one of 2 ways. It either shows up as, I don't know enough. Who am I? What do I know? Which is, something that Danae has talked about. And the other way it can show up is you know too much. So you can immediately think of all the reasons why it won't work. And that stops you from trying things and experimenting and going on a quest. So here, Danae has some insecurity about what she knows. And it's also, I'm listening for identity. Like, she has beliefs about herself that for some reason, she doesn't see herself as a knowledgeable, capable coach, even though she has all of this external validation. She has these certifications, she has all this social proof, all of this external proof, but internally, she doesn't have the identity of someone who sees themselves as a confident, powerful, capable, knowledgeable coach. So if I'm working with her longer term, I'm going to really want to explore that more deeply. I'm going to look at the knowledge threshold. What does it really mean to know? What does she really need to know? How could she find out? And how can she change her beliefs about herself and get more confidence and so forth? The other thing that I'm listening for is essence again. So what I'm hearing is and you can't tell anybody what their essence is. We can only be curious about it and reflect back and help them reflect so that they get more in touch with it. But I think what I'm starting to notice is that her essence has something to do with a certain kind of curiosity and a certain way of gathering information and organizing it in a certain way, that comes naturally to her. She probably can't help. She can't help but do that. She reads and collects information and gathers and follows her curiosity in a certain way that is, probably similar in some ways to most, if not all of us here that we're curious, but she also has her own way of doing it and her own way of synthesizing things and so forth. And so there's something about that I could also follow. But again, I'm gonna go where I think there's the most juice. So I'm gonna be more curious about identity and this knowledge threshold, what it would mean for her to be more knowledgeable. So, Danae, you said, "Who am I? What do I know?" Tell me more about that. What do you know? Like, tell me something about your bone knowledge. Like, what's something that you can help a client with that you don't really even need to think about too much or work very hard to do?
Well, I have a lot of empathy for people who maybe don't feel like they belong in. Let me give you a little bit of background. So I mentioned I grew up, single mom, 2 kids, small rural town in Illinois.
Mhm.
There still are no stoplights there. I I grew up around blue collar. My mom never earned more than minimum wage. And so I find myself in a lot of circles now where they're highly educated people. They're people that grew up in cities, and maybe different countries. They're worldly and have explored and are sophisticated. And I've done a bit of travel and had some great experiences of myself, but there's still this sense of, I live in a flyover state. I'm in Des Moines, Iowa.
Mhm.
And I've always lived in a relatively small city or a rural area. And so there's seeing everything so I have a lot of empathy for people, to go back to what I said, who maybe kind of feel the same way. Like, I'm not that kind of person. They don't identify with, being highly successful and well-spoken and all of the things. And I've had some really great coaching conversations with individuals who find themselves there, and helping them understand that you belong in the room and your voice is just as important as everyone else's. I don't know that I'm embodying it fully myself, but I think I'm helpful at guiding others to at least start them thinking down that path of owning themselves in a different way.
Mhm.
Does that answer
Okay.
your question?
Yes. And so something very interesting just happened here. Danae is describing something that she is drawn to. Like, you could tell that what she's describing is not only an interest and a capability, but it's also a value that is very personal. And so, and then also she acknowledged that maybe she's not doing that so well for herself. So good coaching is evocation and provocation. Evocation is drawing the client out, helping them discover, in a sense, what they already know. Again, it's kind of like what I said earlier. A good coaching session is where both people both people get something they didn't know they needed and learn something they didn't know they knew. So evocation is helping the client to know something they didn't know they knew. Provocation is challenging the client. What I call tapping on their bottle, which is the first chapter in the book. So I'll let you read that. By the way, if you don't want to buy the book, you can read the very first draft of the book for free on the community forum, because it started as posts that I did there. But good coaching is also a provocation, and a provocation is just a little bit more of a hot question or challenge to the client. And so one of the things that I immediately felt like saying to Danae was, do you belong? So I'm just going to say that. So with the clients that you think about creating, do you belong?
Cognitively in my head, I can say, yes, I do.
Yeah,
Here, I don't know that I feel it.
yeah. Okay. What would you say to a client who told you that? How do you help a client who feels like they don't belong in the room? How do you help them feel like they belong in the room?
This might sound funny, but there's an energy, and it's harder now via Zoom, but there's an energy that I try to transmit to them, and looking them deeply in the eyes and saying, you belong because you're here. You were born, you're worthwhile.
Yeah.
And all of the comparison that you do to other people, that's just in your head, and that's just noise. And it's understandable because that's how we're raised. That's what society puts upon us.
Hmm.
But inherently and intrinsically, you belong
Hmm.
just because you're here.
Okay. Would it help if I told you that you belong just because you're here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would it help if I told you you belong coaching the kinds of people that you want to coach because of your life experience, not in spite of it?
Mhm.
You know something about what it felt like not to belong. You know something about what it feels like to grow up in a place and then be in other rooms, like you say, where you maybe feel like you have to earn the right to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how does that resonate for you? Because I noticed that when you said that you smiled, your face changed.
Yeah. Um, that feels, I definitely feel like I'm hitting a place where I am feeling that. And it registered to me that, when I'm working with a client and able to say that to them, I do fully believe it for them. And
Hmm.
I start to fully believe it for myself too, because I
Yeah.
think that that's just what people need to hear
Mhm.
occasionally from others.
Yeah. So it's an affirmation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I had a few interactions there without saying what I was thinking, but so let me just back up a little bit. Again, I started with a little bit of a provocation, meaning I asked her a question that was a little more challenging. I asked her a question that she might have a reaction to, like she could have gotten defensive, she could have gotten more emotional, she could have responded in any number of ways. It was a very direct question that I asked. But notice what happened was she went to a place where she was a little bit more vulnerable. And because she also has this thing where she's working or wants to work around something that is also work for her personally, a good sort of strategy is to let the person coach themselves. So she said this is something she does. So I just invited her to do it for herself, to tell me what she would do if she were her own client. And then because she told me what she would say, I had a choice there. I could say, can you say that to yourself? But I also said it to her so that she could fully receive it. In other words, it's a little different if I ask her to say to herself, I belong. That might come second. But first, it's a different felt experience if she hears it from somebody else. That's what she does for other people. So we're at a place right now, just in the interest of time, where I feel like we've had a little bit of movement. There's something different now. And what I'm always interested in is creating a difference. A lot of the work that we do is very subtle. It's hard for a client to be able to say, to measure the benefit that they're getting. So you want them to experience a difference. Something moves, something shifts. And a good question to ask at the end of a session, or certainly I ask at the end of every month or every quarter, my clients contract a quarter at a time, usually with a year-long commitment. And at the end of a quarter, I'll say, so kind of debriefing that quarter, I'll say, so what's different since we first started working together? If a client says something, it's true. If I tell them what's different, it may or may not be true. Like if I tell them, look how far you've grown and everything, they may say, well, I haven't grown so much. But if I say what's different and they say, well, I've grown a lot as a leader, then it's true for them. So I'm gonna start to wrap this up. And two things that I'm gonna do here. One is I am gonna try to find what I call the first domino. If you've read the book, the idea is what's the biggest, smallest step that Danae can take and know she won't fail? What's some little thing that she can do that will continue the movement of what we've done together? And then the other thing is I'm just going to ask her to sort of tell me what stood out for her, what's different for her, what is she taking away, so that she can get a handle on what her experience was. One of the agreements I ask my clients to make is to send me their notes, insights, and actions within 48 hours of a session. Most of my clients actually, I create a Google folder and a Google Doc, and some of them even just keep notes in the session in a Google Doc, and they'll add that there. But I'm going to just ask that check-in as a way to close the session. So Danae, you talked about belonging, and that part of it for you is that you need to feel that you belong. What's something that you can do? Actually, let me back up a minute. So I noticed that at the beginning of the conversation, you told me a lot about external sort of validation and motivation. You can respond to a client and you have all this external validation, these certifications and so forth. And that hasn't really been enough for you to feel like you belong. What's something that you can do for yourself that would help you feel more confident about belonging in the room with the kinds of clients that you really want to work with?
We're talking like the biggest, smallest thing.
Yeah, something that, in other words, biggest meaning it would be a meaningful step. The smallest meaning you can't fail. It's something you could do that would be meaningful, but you can't fail.
Well, I think I've been toying around with the idea of, really starting to distill down what it is I know essentially, that I've learned over the course of my lifetime, and more specifically over the course of the last 7 years in coaching and leadership and my own personal development, and distilling that down maybe just in a Google Doc to some, but as you say, some of the bone knowledge of here's what I know. I think would be a really good start to put some deeper thought around that and then make it tangible on the page.
Okay. Can I give you something to think about? So, by the way, I never give advice, but I give a lot of things to think about. So here's some things to think about. One is that you do have a lot of bone knowledge, like you have a lot of professional experience. You described the work that you've been doing. You have a lot of life experience. It can be a really valuable exercise to take that inventory. In fact, I did something similar for myself when I was creating Coaching from Essence. So it's really looking at your knowledge, skills, and abilities and taking an inventory of what it is that you have to offer. But also then of those things, there are some things that are learned that are more about personality that maybe you've become good at because a client gave you an opportunity, or you were responding to something. What I would encourage you to do is to really take an inventory of everything that you know and you're capable of, but then really focus on the things that are resonant for you, the kinds of things that come to you naturally, the kinds of things that you really care about, that you get more excited about, so that you can create your practice around those things. I know that you've been reading the book. Have you done the exercise of identifying your ideal client?
I have started it.
Okay.
Yes, I have started it, but I haven't
Yeah.
been as thorough with it as I want to be.
Okay. So that's the other part of the exercise that I think would be really helpful for you, because if you really know the kinds of people that you want to work with, then you can be more intentional about creating them. And part of what makes that client the ideal client is the kind of work that you want to do with them. So giving some reflection to those two things, I think would be helpful for you.
Great. Thank you.
Sound good? Okay.
Mhm.
So how was this for you? What's different for you since we started the conversation? What are you taking away from it?
Well, I was honestly pretty nervous starting the conversation because this is my first time with the community here. And I have an aversion to talking about myself. And so, but what I realized over the course of it is I do have things to offer. Like I'm okay. Like I was able to articulate what I wanted to articulate. I do belong in this circle of coaches and in this industry. And I just am ending the conversation feeling much more confident and relieved that it's coming to an end. But grateful. Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Danae, I know that you're also going to be taking the program next month. So I think do you feel like you're in a good, comfortable place stopping now? And,
Yes.
and we'll definitely follow up. We'll do more work with this next month. So thank you for volunteering. Let me open it up for questions, comments, observations. Don't be shy.
I just appreciated how precise you share the inner processes. And yeah, I just found it's such good teaching. It's like
Thank you.
absorbing that. Yeah, such good teaching.
Thank you.
I always learn so much from you, Robert, every time I watch you coach. And I had forgotten how important it is to ask the client what is different. And that's just it's masterful coaching. It really is. And I love, again, your reinforcement that, like, you laughed and said, I never give advice, but I do say, can ask permission. Would it be okay if I gave you something to think about? And that's such a great way to help a client.
Thanks, Gail. Thank you. Other questions? No? Other reactions? Questions about coaching from Essence? Questions about who wants, so we have 15 minutes left. Who wants some really laser? Greg. Yes.
Yeah, you've heard this from me before, and I've been resisting and hesitant to bring it, but it's still present for me. So here we are.
Yeah.
I notice that as I coach and my clients unpack whatever they're unpacking, I start collecting ideas of interventions.
Yep.
And I start seeing places where they've got cognitive distortions, or how they're perceiving something, or how they're thinking about something, or about their emotional intelligence or communication. So I just start tracking. I'm like, okay, there's like 7 things that I could say based on my client's first 2 paragraphs or whatever. And I notice, and I've been listening to you and tracking how you make your choices. And it seems like there's some point when you decide to ask them, may I offer you something to think about, which is, our code for let me tell you something I think, or let me teach you something, or let's go in a direction I want. How do you decide when it's time to do that versus keep exploring, keep being curious, keep unpacking, keep uncovering? Because for me, and I think there's an anxiety to it. I think there's a story about wanting to create value, but I have no shortage of things to say to my clients and wanting to help them learn and see something they don't know, or teach them or grow or have a difference. And yeah, so I'm stuck in this place of when is it time to lean back and ask more and be receptive with curiosity versus when is it time to start giving them all the gold I've accumulated in my pocket since they've started talking.
Can I make an observation?
Of course.
Before I answer that. So my observation is that what you're listening for are all of the models and frameworks and concepts and everything that you have accumulated externally. And you have a belief as a coach that you don't know enough. And so you keep collecting more ideas, models, frameworks, and so forth, because you think that that will give you more confidence as a coach. And this isn't just for you. I mean, my guess is that there are several people on this call who have sort of the same mindset. And this is something that can be difficult to learn, because when you're starting, it's natural for someone who's starting something new to be insecure and looking for lots of things to hold on to. My suggestion for you is to really start thinking about, again, the 80-20 rule. Like, I have my models and frameworks, but there's only a few of them. Like, what I'm mostly listening for really is levels of creation, because it starts with essence. I'm listening for essence. I'm listening for levels of creation. I'm listening for triple loop learning to know where to go. Like, is it time to be in the do loop? Is it time to be in the thinking, exploring how the person thinks about something? Is it time to go to the being loop to get down into feelings and intentions and identity and all of that deeper work? So I'm also tracking as I'm listening, and I'm listening to a lot of different things, as you saw in the demonstration, right? Every time Danae stops talking, I've got all these forks in the road. I have all these choices, but I'm not looking at it through the lens of all these models then, where I also feel like I might have to explain those to use those with the client. So I'm keeping it pretty lean and simple. So that's just something for you, and this isn't just for you, Greg, but for everyone here. Absolutely, I encourage you to learn from anything and everything, but you'll learn the most just by coaching. I've read a handful of coaching books. I've read relatively few coaching books. And I'm not certified and I don't have a degree. My head is not full of all that, all of that stuff. Now, absolutely, I want to be clear. I'm not dissing it or saying it's not valuable, but I'm just saying you can get too attached to it and your mind can get full of it. And that gets in the way of you being present and really listening and responding to the client, which is more what I'm trying to do. So now the answer to your question of how do you know when to give the person something to think about is, first of all, our tendency as coaches is to want to go immediately to the do loop because the client presents you with a problem. And most of us are pretty good problem solvers. And so we have ideas. And so we want to give them something to do. The client says they want something to do. What do I do? And we have ideas. And so it's natural to kind of take the bait and want to do that early in the conversation. But we want to deepen understanding. First of all, we want to understand, and we want to help the client deepen their understanding. So the first thing is always curiosity. If you look at the stages of coaching that I talk about in the book, we want to be curious before we go to creativity, which is looking at what the client could do and then getting them to commit to something that they will do. We want to be very curious. The first stage is contracting, just agreeing what are we going to focus on. And contracting might be as simple as my contracting question with Danae was, so what would be the most valuable thing we could talk about today? That was like mini contracting. And then the next thing was curiosity. So I think my first response was just a very open-ended question. Tell me more about I forget exactly what it was, but tell me more about feeling stuck. So that's curiosity. So I'm curious. Once I feel like we have a deeper understanding, we're kind of peeling the onion. Before I would give something to think about, almost always, there might be exceptions, but almost always I'm going to ask the client first what they think they could do. I want them to do their own thinking. And I also don't want to suggest something that they say, oh, I thought I tried that and it didn't work. So I want to know what they did first. And then if I can, I'm going to build on what they've done. So, or what they're thinking of. So Danae suggested something that I thought was actually what I was thinking of suggesting. So, so I sort of built on what she said. There are other things I could have given her to do. I mean, I have other ideas, but I don't want to overwhelm the client. I don't want to give them so much that then they have too much in their head and they get confused and it's more difficult for them to take action. I just wanted her to have one simple thing, like, this is my first conversation with her. What's one thing that she could agree to do that we both know she can't fail? Like if she takes some time to reflect and takes an inventory of what she's capable of doing, she can't fail at that. There's no wrong answer. So I'm setting her up for success. And now the next time I talk to her, we've got more momentum. We can continue to work on that and explore that. So does that help, Greg?
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Cecile.
Yeah, so Robert, we have something to tell you because we are actually as a family. So I have Steve. He's just across the table. And I've got also my daughter who is a teenager and she actually has questions for you. And she's 18 and Steve and I are both coach in our own domain. And my daughter Ilana is really interested into the session you've just been giving. And thank you so much, Danae, by the way, for volunteering, because I know it requires a lot of courage. So well done. And she has, and I'm going, she's a bit shy. So as a mom, I will be speaking for her. So she asked you, Robert, what are the 3 worst things to do in coaching? That's her first question. And then
the 3 worst things to do. Okay. Oh, there's more. Okay, good.
And then I give you the 3 questions and then you decide how you want to answer. The second one is, how do you become a better listener to your clients? And then it was more suggestion than a question, is like, why leave something to think about and not give suggestions? So that was the 3 questions she had for you.
Okay. Let me go in reverse order.
Yeah.
So the first one is, why give the person something to think about rather than give suggestions? And the reason for that, it's a subtle distinction, but the reason for that is if I give someone to think about, give someone something to think about, they're going to go deeper with it and they're going to own it. If I give suggestions or I give advice, the person will not think as much about it. They're going to react to it. Now, if I make a suggestion, they're going to agree or disagree with me. If I give them something to think about, they've got to go, It's a different way of receiving it. It helps them to be more receptive to it. And also it gives them a greater sense of ownership, because if they think about it, then whatever they decide to do, they know that they've thought about it. Like if they decide to do it, now they own it. It's really their decision. And so that's that subtle difference in framing helps it be a little bit more powerful for the client. Okay. Is that helpful? Is she nodding her head?
She's nodding her head like the thumbs up. She's big smile. She's happy.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Good. The second question was, how do you become a better listener? So listening is a big topic, but I'll give you a couple things to think about. The first is, to be a good listener, you have to be present. And what does it mean to be present? It means to be fully embodied and present and present, to be with somebody. Part of that, especially in person, is your body language. So if we were in person, I would be sitting up and, I would lean more. You can't tell, but I'm 6'4" and my legs are really long. And so it's not that comfortable for me to sit like that. It helps if I sit sideways a little bit. And, but you'll notice, hopefully you all felt that I was really present in this. Part of that on Zoom is a little bit tricky because, we're not in the same room together. We're not really making eye contact. Right now, I have Cecile centered on my screen under the camera. And so if I look at the camera, all of you feel like I'm making eye contact with you, don't you? You feel that? So if you're on Zoom, you're coaching someone on Zoom, or you're doing a group on Zoom, what I do is I rearrange the images of all of you so that whoever I'm talking to, I move to the top of the screen in the center right under the camera. Okay, so that's one thing. So presence, whether it's in person or virtual. The second thing is the best way to listen is to really put your attention outside of yourself. And so part of that is just looking. Again, it's with your body, with your senses. I'm really looking and hearing, but looking and hearing is not listening. The other thing is I have to empty myself. So I'm doing a little bit like what Greg said when the person is talking. I'm sort of bookmarking things that I'm curious about, but mostly I'm just really focused on what they're saying. I become really curious about the other person. Okay. And the one other part of listening is that hearing is not listening. If, let's say, you come home and you're upset about something, and you're telling Stephen about how upset you are, and Stephen is, on Facebook or something, and you go, Stephen, you didn't hear a word I said. And he says, no, I did. And he repeats word for word exactly what you just said. Do you feel heard? Well, actually, he did hear you, but he wasn't listening. So listening is showing that you understand something about what the person said. So you may have noticed when I responded to Danae, I almost always did a little bit of reflecting before I offered whatever I was going to, to say to her. I would say something like, Danae, you talked about how you were feeling frustrated or stuck or whatever. And then I would add something. So I showed her that I was not only did I hear her, but I understood what she was saying. Okay. Does that help? Is that thumbs up?
She's writing.
Oh, she's taking notes. Good. Okay, good.
Notes. Yeah.
All right. And then the first question was, what are the 3 worst things that a coach can do? This is a little bit more challenging because I only think about the good things I can do as a coach. But here's some things. Here's some things you definitely do not want to do. The first thing is you never want to judge a client. Whatever a person is struggling with, whatever I disagree with, I never judge a client. One of the sort of core principles, again, of coaching from essence is I wear 2 bracelets. One says, everybody needs your love. Everybody is in some kind of pain somewhere. And if you read the book and you learn about coaching from essence, the deepest threshold is what I call the love threshold. In other words, what really stops most of us from creating a life we love is deep down, hidden way deep in the dark, is that fear that if people really knew the truth about us, they would discover that we were unlovable. And so when I see someone who is showing up in a way that is painful or scary or angry or, something that I don't necessarily approve of, I don't judge them. I try to have compassion for them. So the worst thing you can do is judge a client. It's very difficult to help someone if you're judging them. It's important to understand that everyone is doing the best they can with what they have. And some people have been badly hurt, and so they hurt others. Okay. So that's the first thing. Never judge a client. The second thing is you have to believe in your clients. Another worst thing you can do is to not believe in your client. If you don't believe in your client, don't work with them. So when Danae says that her fear is she doesn't belong, and then she tells me how she does belong, I believe her. And you notice I affirmed that. You know, I gave her some reasons why I also believed that she belonged. She has life experience. She has professional experience. She's done this work. You know, she is curious, or, you know, her essence is, she has all the qualities that would make for a successful coach. Now, when a client tells you their dream, one of the worst things you can do is not believe their dream. If a client tells me their dream, if it's a true dream, I believe it. If it's not a true dream, I'll challenge it. Because sometimes someone will present you with what I call a bonsai dream, a beautiful miniature version of their real dream, because they don't believe they can have what they really want. Or they'll tell you a grandiose dream, which is usually a compensation. And so part of my role as a coach is to help them find the true, authentic dream that's really resonant with their essence, with who they deeply are. Okay, so that's the second thing. And the third thing is this is more about practice building, is you never treat a client like a transaction. I don't do transactions. I create relationships. The minimum engagement to work with me as a coaching client is 3 months, and that's only if someone is in transition. All of my other clients, we enter into a coaching agreement with the intention that we're going to work together for at least a year. And I only work on retainer. You know, I don't charge per session or anything like that. I never want the client to feel like they're on the clock or that it's a transaction. I want them to feel like it's a relationship and I'm an ally. And it's a different kind of relationship. And then again, it's generosity. I serve as much as I can. And the only criteria for what the retainer is what represents commitment and fairness. And so that's a bigger topic. There's a lot about that. And again, you can go through the entire course free. There's a huge section on practice building. But aside from practice building, it's just when you're coaching, you never want it to feel like a transaction. I want the client to feel like I'm an ally, not just a hired gun for that session or, you know, the work that we're doing. Is that helpful?
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
What can I just see her so that I know who I
You can just say
speak and give you a smile? Hey,
hi.
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And you're gonna be you want to be a coach?
Definitely in that field, but more a psychologist.
Okay.
Psychologist.
If you're interested in learning how to be a coach, and you show me that you've gone through some of the videos on the community platform, I'll give you a scholarship for next month's program. You'll be the youngest person to go through the program.
Ooh.
How old are you?
17.
Okay, you'll be the youngest. Other than, I mean, there have been a few infants that have also gone through the program. But you'll be the youngest person who can speak gone through the program. If you're interested, just reach out to me.
I will. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Those were great questions. All right, I see we've gone over a few more minutes. If you need to jump, thank you so much for being here. Please, I'll put the links here again. You know, please join the community. It's completely free. Again, it's not like the entire course is completely free. You can go through it 3 times. If you are interested, please read the book. If you like the book, please leave a review on Amazon. And I'll stay on just a few more minutes if anyone else has any questions. Thank you so much for being here today. Any other questions? Any anything else I can do for everyone? Yeah, QN.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have questions about listening and focusing attention outward.
Okay.
So to check with you on this. So I do that, and I love being immersed in the client's world
Mhm.
and the way. And then I'm also more and more I'm trusting my, like, even right now in this part of this
Mhm.
conversation, I feel my belly is like often. And
Yeah.
usually what I'm exploring and practicing now is that is an important source of information.
Yeah.
So I want to know, to hear your perspective on that felt
Mhm.
sense. My
Okay.
my current learning from that is like, whenever I feel this, that means there's something that
Yeah.
and I feel very often in this conversation, which I love.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just wondering.
Great. So, oh, by the way, Danae, if you can, please stay on the call so that when everyone else is off, I can just have a minute with you, if you can. If not, I'll follow up with you. Okay. So what you're talking about is more somatic coaching, right? Like you're aware of what's happening in your body as you coach.
Yeah.
And you're right. I attend to my body to notice how my body is reacting. Sometimes my body knows something before my conscious mind does, right?
Yeah.
And I may have a reaction or an intuition. The difference is a reaction is something that I'm feeling that's really more about me.
Yeah.
So in other words, like I could be impatient, I could be I could be nervous because I don't know how to respond, or so that's more about my own reaction to what's happening.
Yeah.
Intuition is more, I might be feeling something that my body is telling me something about what the client is doing. So it could be, for example, that if I'm feeling bored, it has
Yeah.
something to do with the way the client is showing up. They're showing up in a way that's inauthentic,
Yeah.
and the energy isn't there, or they're being emotional and I'm bored. That tells me that there's something that's inauthentic about that emotion. They're hiding something, not
Yeah.
necessarily from me, but maybe from themselves. And so
Yeah.
I'm going to be more curious and go deeper. Or if I'm impatient, it may be that, again, I feel like they're staying at the surface and I'm trying to get them to go deeper and they're not going. So it's like information. It's a way of calibrating what's happening in the conversation. Now, for you,
Yeah.
I don't know, what you're describing could just be excitement,
Yeah.
because what it seemed like you were expressing was more, you're energized.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And then I'm learning that it's like
Yeah.
I want to jump. And
You're,
it's great, that's like, so what I'm got
yeah.
from your distinction between reaction and intuition, in my case, I'm taking it from me now, is it's intention of using the body as a instrument of service. Like I'm
Yes.
offering body awareness as an instrument of service for this conversation. So whatever that
Yes.
comes up here, that
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
your body is feeling energized
Yeah.
because something in this conversation is resonating for you, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's stirring some things up, and you may not even know what that is yet, but maybe it'll take a day or two and you'll reflect on it and you'll think, oh, there was something about that tapped into something that is important for you. The other side of it is we can do the same thing for our clients. So there are times when I'm coaching, someone may be emotional, or they may be expressing where they're stuck, or that they're stuck or something, and I may say, where do you feel that in your body? If I feel like they're too in their head, I may invite them to go into their body, and that can lead them deeper. Or they may be expressing something that's showing up in their body, and I may, again, just work with their body to keep them out of their head so that they have a more immediate experience of what's going on.
Yeah. Thank you. This is great. Yeah, I'm clear on what this message is for me. It's like I want to hang out here.
Oh, good.
So,
Good.
I'll hang out. I would spend more time here. I'm so happy we finally met again. And your
It's so
book
good.
so well
It's-
written. Like,
But thank you.
Ah, it's so good.
It's so great to see you. I met QN at a conference 5 or 6 years ago. So it's really wonderful to see you. Yeah,
So glad to connect.
that's great.
It warmed
Thank
my
you.
heart and me excited. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Ben, I see you're the last person other than Danae with your camera on. Were you waiting to ask a question or?
Well, no, I did want to say to Danae that much of her messaging, sort of the wealth of knowledge, all the rational pieces that are saying, yes, I deserve to be here. And yet somewhere inside our doubt, it's not unique. We share a similar thing, and there's lots of people out there. And I'm not the best at being due diligent about all the knowledge that I've acquired, but I'm working on that skill. And I thought of a book, and I don't know if you do this. That book I read, and I can't remember what it's called, but there was a person who basically came out and said, like so many people, no ideas are unique. The person just said, I'm really good at distilling a whole bunch of ideas and putting it together. And so even when you were saying that, I thought about how I would speak to you and, use the, theories of like chatter to talk to yourself in third person. And then I thought, well, shit, I'd be happy. Like if I want to go find out about a movie, I don't ask the director. There's somebody who watched it and gave me their feedback. So just because I didn't write a book and you didn't write a book doesn't mean that the knowledge that we've acquired isn't valuable. And there's so many people out there who just are like, you know what? I don't have the time to gather all that knowledge. So I'm coming to you for that information, and thank you. So yeah, this is me coaching you to coach me. So I just wanted to share with you, that's what was going on through my head, and be supportive that you're not alone in it. So
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ben. Another thing, just for both of you, for anyone who's still on the call, is most coaches think when they're starting that the most important thing is what they know. And actually, the most important thing is who you are. You do the most powerful coaching from being, not from knowing. So just something to reflect on. And that's a part of coaching from essence. Is the frameworks and ideas and knowledge are very loosely held because they're useful, but they're just tools. You pick them up and put them down. What really matters is how you show up, who you are, what is your intention, how present are you. Those kinds of things are much more powerful in terms of your ability to help someone than what you know. And that sounds like a good place to end.